You all. Sorry, I'm just a wee bit late. I realize I was finishing my preparation for tonight, and then I didn't see that it was already 6:30. So sorry for those 2 minutes. I'm happy to be here again tonight. I hope that tonight there will be some visitors, as I know that Sundays are not the best slot for most people wherever they are in the world eventually. So that I'm still wondering whether I should continue on Sundays or not, but I'll check this out with those who at some point might still consider joining. What I know is that there are a few people who are watching the replies, so this means there are viewers. Just the timing, the slot is not ideal. I'll need to find a working solution for that. So hoping that we will have a few people tonight. Just a few words on the theme. So tonight I want to extend what we discussed last week on how to choose methods, methodology choices with their end of studies dissertation, and spoke of the classical mistakes and what the choice of methods should actually be, and on what methods are eventually based. So for tonight, I will discuss this further with a few prompts to help you visualize where you're at with your methodology choices when you get started. So some prompts aimed at helping you decide. So none of those prompts will make the decision for you, but will be help to support your own decision making, as it is the backbone of everything I've told you for a while. I've been telling you for some time. So before I engage in this, a few words on what has happened this week. This week has been pretty rich, both for me and also in terms of AI and technology. A number of things have happened. I'll start with me. So for this week, I had a number of fruitful talks and meetings with people. So first, I spoke with two deans who are interested in my tools. I remember I mentioned last time that I had exchanged with some schools, and that another two are interested. And indeed, the good thing is that then I have another 2 schools, and I'm doing a demo tomorrow with one of them, and another demo with the second school on Tuesday. So coming soon. Of course, this is no guarantee at all that they will subscribe, but at least there is an interest, and I hope then I can go farther with them. Then, very interesting was also that I had a meeting with someone who was the founder of one of the leading consultancy companies for higher education, and this gentleman with whom I met before the Christmas break contacted me again to let me know that he would like to talk again about my solutions, and we had a very fruitful talk on Tuesday. We spoke for about an hour, so he had a few questions that were not technical questions, or a bit. Some were sort of practical questions. How can it be integrated with schools LMS? How it is possible to operate it without a former LMS for those schools that do not have one, and a couple of questions relating to GDPR, AI Act, and I also added stuff on NIST too for cybersecurity. What was very interesting is that he confirmed that everything regarding the end of studies dissertation is the current hot topic. So I know it is the current hot topic, but it was confirmed. He has requests from a number of schools regarding this, and he is now reviewing a number of projects and trying to see also who can be connected with whom, and our solutions are part of the solutions that exist. Not necessarily all of them for the end of studies dissertation, not that I know, but there are things. Also, as I spoke of the evaluation of syllabi and of their consistency with with reference books and setting expected competencies, etc., and with program outlines, he confirmed again that this is the next hot topic for the couple of years to come. So first, making sure that the quality of assessment is there, and second, making sure that that programs are all consistent. And for this, indeed, as there is a dramatic shortage of resources, as most schools are confronted with financial hardship, it will be more than necessary to have tools that can support decision making on this matter. And this means, or I understood, that the next thing on which I'm working may well be more useful than I could have anticipated. So if it happens with a number of schools, with this next thing on which I'm going to work, then perfect. This is for the main thing which happened this week. And then I was I had a couple of other meetings during the week that were all very fruitful. And I was in Paris. We worked with Mirella on her research. We made good progress. So it's all good. Plus, I also am building a network of sales people for those schools that are out with my own network, but that could be really interested in such solutions. So progressively, having things in place and ready to go. I'm glad, really. So this is for my week, but as you're now used to it, some news from AI, from the AI and tech front for this week. And this week there were a number of important things that happened. First, a partnership was announced this week between Amazon and STMicroelectronics in Grenoble to develop new chips for the cloud, for cloud computing, and also for AI. This is a great opportunity for STMicroelectronics to catch up on those GPU chips that were missing in their offer, and this might enable STMicroelectronics, which has long been a major player in this area, to catch up on NVIDIA and on Intel and a couple of others. So this is an important one. Knowing also that Amazon is connected with is strongly connected with Anthropic, has shares in Anthropic, the company that develops Claude and Claude Code, and that challenges software development, software making, with something very recent from this morning. So I saw it this morning just when I woke up. The CEO of Anthropic warned that AI might endanger, might undermine software companies as the new tools that exist. And last week I mentioned Claude Code and Codex by OpenAI, also Anti-Gravity by Google, as those tools are very powerful to develop software from scratch, from prompts, from good quality prompts. With a good quality prompt, you can arrive at the end of the day at a software, and probably much better developed, programmed than a software would be with human developers. And this is the big warning from Anthropic's CEO. So interesting, I think. And this means also, this implies that more and more chips will be expected. And this was confirmed by the fact that there was another warning from the NVIDIA CEO that chips and GPUs are being obsolete. So obsolescence is very fast. They're being used very quickly, but also they're dated. So they are easily and very quickly outdated as new chips are developed, as the needs for processing power is increasing. And this is a big concern as more and more chips, stronger and stronger chips are required for AI, and the production is not necessarily following. There starts being a shortage of those. Wins those exclusive partnerships between companies. And if you remember, the first big contract was linking OpenAI and NVIDIA for $300 billion. It's not a minor amount of money, it's a big one. So this might also explain why there's such a rush for data centers everywhere in the world. And with this week, again, two important pieces of information. One is that Mistral AI, so French AI company that developed Le Chat, Mistral AI has invested €1,200,000,000 in Sweden to build a data center. A data center in a place of the country where it's cold enough so that cooling processes is not a big deal. This is also why this week we had the announcement of the biggest IPO ever, $1,250 billion for the IPO of the merger between SpaceX and xAI. whereby Elon Musk wishes to build data centers in the space, like I explained last week, because because energy will be cheaper and because also cooling will not be a concern, as it's very cold in the space, as the space is not all enlightened by the sun as the Earth is. So there's a new Star Wars, if I may say so. And this has another big implication. So I said there are three pieces of news relating to data centers. So the one was with Mistral, the second one was with with this merger. The third one is with Arianespace and Amazon, again, that have negotiated a partnership and launched a rocket into the space that should enable Amazon to compete with Starlink. So with Elon Musk's Starlink, and perhaps bring new alternative satellite communications and perhaps new ways of storing and processing data. So I'm not sure about the very content of the partnership, but their idea is to rival, to challenge Starlink. In total, AI companies have announced that they were planning on investing up to $650 billion this year in a variety of projects. So high amounts of money. So a huge amount of money for this. Just Anthropic, only Anthropic is planning on investing 30 billions, plus Alphabet announced a loan over 100 years. And as far as I remember, this loan is for an amount of money which is not that big, which is about 20 billions. Sorry, not that big. In comparison with the amount we have been used to seeing in the past few months. So Alphabet, Google's parent company, is indeed planning on such a long-term investment, which means that they are very optimistic regarding their perennial grant and their long-term existence. And I'm just thinking of another company that thought the same 25 years ago. This company was called Yahoo, and nowadays Yahoo is like a zombie company. Still exists, but it was repurchased partly by Rakuten in Japan and partly by Time Warner, so AOL, American Online Time Warner, recently, which then was purchased, if you remember, by Netflix. So the company itself no longer exists per se. Will Alphabet, will Google still exist within 100 years in 2126? I have no idea, really. I think it is being very optimistic, thinking it will be the case. Back to data centers. French company Rexel is boosted by its data centers in the US. So more and more data centers are built. The French company has an expertise at this, which is a good thing, good to know. Likewise, a big data center is being transformed, so is being built in Béthune in northern France as a conversion a refurbishing of a former factory. I can't remember what this factory was making, but a former factory. So it is the second big data center in France. One was in Bordeaux, announced 2 weeks ago. This one in northern France this week. There might be others. In parallel, the quest for critical metals and critical raw materials is continuing, with the French government taking shares in Imerys, the mining company that for now is seeking for lithium in the French volcanic region in Auvergne. And this company is bound to dig new mines, not gold mines. I would like to say gold mines, but other mines to find critical raw materials that would be necessary for chips, necessary for data centers, necessary for AI, actually, at the end of the day. Likewise, something important was that a French company, another one, is making very good progress on quantum computing. What does it mean, good progress? It means that it manages to handle errors with more accuracy than other companies are. And in a subsequent stream, if you like, I can explain what I understand of quantum computing. I do not guarantee that I understand very well, but what I understood, very little I understand, might at some point bring some insights into this discussion. Also, something interesting I've noticed is that France is well positioned in Europe in terms of AI-related businesses, with more than 1,000 startups during AI, and this irrespective of Mistral AI startups, perhaps like the company I'm building, I'm about to launch. About 1,000. That's something interesting. It's an interesting number for now. So I think we're good. And because of all those big amounts of money that are being applied, that are being invested, that are being spent all over the world, the stock exchange this week has been pretty nervous. The stock exchange has been very volatile, and from one day to the other it could either praise either of the companies I've mentioned or sanction them. So this probably means that the AI tech bubble, if there is one, is now bursting, slowly getting back to something more reasonable, more sensible. Not sure, we'll see over weeks, but here we could see this week that investors are not as I would say credible as they were a few weeks back. We could also see that they have clearly sanctioned software companies. As I mentioned, 𝗬𝗏𝘃 CEO himself this morning warned against their disappearing. And it's true that myself, I'm currently working on one app, so two apps actually, without coding. One app is my own CRM, So for the business we're launching, why would I purchase or subscribe to a standard CRM that would cost me a fortune and that would probably not quite meet my needs? Why would I? I was planning on building it from scratch, sort of manually, using some existing tools, starting with 𝗬𝗏𝘂, which I showed you, this software. So I can show you 𝗬𝗏𝘂 here. If you can't remember, let me share my screen quickly. Here we are. 𝗬𝗏𝘂 is this tool that enables to, let's say here, that enables to automate a number of things. So here it is my agent. So it's a simple tool, my agent for the dictionary I mentioned last week. So I thought that I would be obliged to start all over from the beginning with 𝗬𝗏𝘂 and build something here. Let's see. Let's see quickly at this one. So you see how sophisticated things could be at some point. No, that's not the one. How sophisticated things could be. Just here, I thought that I would probably have to think of an architecture that would be this complex. I'm not showing you too much, as I do not want to be mimicked with this, but I really thought I would have to. And actually, with Codex, with anti-gravity, with 𝗕𝗘𝗙𝗢𝗥, I do not need to. So what did I do today? Today I worked on it, and I've got a version which I've not tested yet. Yes, that's another important thing, a very important thing. I've not tested it yet because I do not want to touch anything on my server before I have done my 2 demos tomorrow and on Tuesday. I do not want to risk making my server unavailable when I need it. And yet, there is something I had to do yesterday. Something you might have missed is that OpenAI deprecated 𝗬𝗏𝘂𝗍𝗏 on Friday, February the 13th. And this means that you can no longer use it. And when you use it, when you call the model from an automation like mine, this model will no longer be available from Tuesday. So I had to anticipate this and to replace it with alternative models, but this was requiring more than just changing a model. It required that I changed a number of things in their automations, so they're still functioning, they're still working. Just to say that I really did not want to do anything more that could undermine my server for tomorrow. So I made my own CRM. I have no idea how it looks like. I will see on Wednesday. It will be a surprise, if I can say so, and I hope a nice one. I hope that I can show you next week how the CRM looks like and what it does. So just to say, it will if it works, assuming it will work. What is great is that you write your specifications. So what you want as the context, a good prompt, and then you let the machine work. And I can show you. Just quickly how this works. It's very simple. So here I started with all the specifications and settings I wanted in my CRM, and then sorry it's in French, but then Codex tells me what it understands, what instruction is perhaps missing, what questions are being asked and need answer from me, and then I've got a V1, a production V1. Then once I have approved everything, so here I've got more than an MVP, so minimal viable product, more than this, a good V1, and it's all then enriched with, so asked me questions as to what I want. I asked multiple audits, then at some point it's edited, and afterwards it's posted on GitHub on my private repository and ready to be reinstalled on my server. So what is great is that you give instructions and then you let it work. That's it, and you just watch it work. Of course, you need it at some point to understand what is being done. So here, for instance, I realized that not everything was perfectly secured, and then that's why I said HTTPS constraint. Here I said HTTPS only, so for the server, not HTTP, which is not secured. So and then you watch it work, and it is a big relief, I must confess. I did some work watching, controlling, but it was not as intense as when I was building my own scenarios and making my own workflows. So that's great. We'll see soon if it does work. So this is for this week, and for now I want to get back to our topic, to our theme, which is on methodology choices. And last week I mentioned the 4 classical mistakes, plus I highlighted some truths as to how it goes, or how it should go when you decide on methods for your dissertation. And I mentioned in particular that methods must be grounded in the literature and must proceed from the research question. Methods are here to answer a research question in a way that makes sense to prior research. It does not mean that you have to be conformist, that you have to fully conform to what others have done before and repeat what they did. But if you want to contribute to a certain field, then you must do something that makes sense to them. And how it makes sense to them can be when you do something with methods having some meaning, or ringing the bell with them. So that's the thing. And for today, indeed, I have developed a couple of prompts here for tonight. Instead of talking about methods in general, like I did last week, we're going to test our own choice. Here I will give you, and I will comment on a couple, so not many, on four diagnosis prompts that you can use at this juncture as you are starting with your methods, as you're starting choosing your methods, so you can anticipate their pertinence, their grounding in in prior research, their consistency with your research question, and the way they can really help or not. So the first prompt will be here to is what I would call here inversion detector. And if you remember, last week I mentioned the fact that too often students decide or think they can decide on their methods even before they know what they really want to do, even before they know what their research question really is. Sorry. So here I'll show you, and then we can try it. We can test it. Here. So let me show you the first prompt within a few seconds. So here it is. I'm sharing my screen with you. Here I'm sharing my screen with you. So the prompt says, you are a methodological consistency auditor. So very important to specify a role. Then the task, determine whether my research design is method-driven or question-driven. Here the point is that you need to make sure that you really start with a question, and that the method is here to answer the question and is not here as your preference even before you start. And for this, you check with input, your research question, your chosen or tentative method, why you chose this method, and then you see the output format. Output format, does the question logically require this method? Yes or no? Partially. Is the method mentioned before the research problem is clarified? Yes or no? Verdict, question lead or method lead? And just a one sentence explanation. So here, let's see with, I'll take this one. So I'll try with Gemini that does not know anything about my research. I want a new, new discussion. Here we are. Okay, so here, role, task, input, let's say my research question. Let's take my, let's take a paper I published, and which was on beyond budgeting, which was to what extent are management accountants, management accountants ready to relinquish budgets and go beyond with capital B's, beyond budgeting. Why I chosen methods: interviews plus participant observation. Why I chose this method? I chose this method because I wanted to grasp management accountants rationales and justifications for willing to keep or relinquish budgets. I also wanted to see in real life how they do with or without budgets. And then it will be the moment of truth. Based on the details provided, here is your methodological audit. Does the question logically require this method? Partially. Oof. While interviews are excellent for uncovering rationales and justifications, the research question asks to what extent, which often implies a need for broader quantifiable data. I do not agree, breadth. However, your desire to see how they do in real life makes participant observations a strong fit for depth. Good. Is the method mentioned before the research problem is clarified? No. You have identified the human rational and the real-life behavioral gap as the primary problems before settling on the specific tools of engagement. Verdict: question-driven. One-sentence explanation. Your design is question-driven because the choice of qualitative immersion, interviews, and observation directly follows your specific need to decode the underlying why and how of practitioner behavior rather than applying a preferred tool for its own sake. So this is the audit here. Let's do with new conversation, new discussion with this time. Let's take the I will do let's research question. How do management accountants actually practice budgeting? Methods here, let's say chosen methods, let's say a survey. Why I chose this method? Because I want to grasp their inner thoughts, and we'll see here that there is probably their inner thoughts, and probably it will say that there is a problem. As a methodological consistency auditor, have reviewed your research design. Here is your assessment of your alignment. Does the question logically require this method? Partially. Is the method mentioned before the research problem is clarified? No, not sure. Verdict: method-led. One sentence explanation. While your question seeks to understand how practitioners actually act, your choice of a survey, which is better for generalizable trends, contradicts your stated goal of uncovering inner thoughts. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. A depth usually reserved for qualitative interviews or ethnography. There's a slight methodological mismatch here. Surveys are excellent for breadth, finding out what 500 accountants do, but they struggle with depth, the inner thoughts and nuances of how they do it. If you truly want to grasp the lived experience, your method might be driving the research more than the needs of the question itself. Interesting, isn't it? So here we see with this prompt that a research project, whether your research project is data or method or research driven. So if you're able to justify the choice of methods in relation to the research question, then it means that yes, there is you are research driven, not question driven. Now let's try one more time here. Let's take the same thing. I will take exactly the same prompt, but I will just change one thing here with because I think I think a survey is more objective than any other tool. And what you'll see, as a methodological consistency auditor, I have evaluated your research design for alignment between inquiry and instrument. Here's your audit report. Does the question logically require this method? Partially. Is the method mentioned before the research problem is clarified? No. Verdict, method lead. Ah, interesting. One sentence explanation. The choice of a survey be based on a perceived attribute of the tool, objectivity, rather than its ability to capture the nuance of actual practice suggests the method is dictating the boundaries of their investigation. Interesting. Auditor's insight. In research design, choosing a tool because it is objective is a common trap. While surveys provide statistical rigor, the question of how professionals actually practice something usually involves messy, informal, and social behaviors that a standardized questionnaire might miss. To move toward a question-led design, you must decide if you're looking for generalizable patterns through a survey or in-depth behavioral processes, case study, ethnography, or anything else. So here we see different responses. So here is the first prompt, just to see if your methods are aligned, if your intended or a tentative method is aligned with your research question and whether it comes first or not. Then I will share with you a second prompt, which is proportionality test. What does it mean, the proportionality test? Here it is a prompt that will help you identify to what extent your approach is proportionate. So it means is adequate. So even if your method is question driven, is the suggested method really necessary here? Is this method particularly useful? So here what Gemini told us partly answered this question, partly only, especially when it said here it's perhaps not quite consistent, or this method might be more aligned or whatsoever. Usually when we do surveys, it's because we want to do this way, etc. So here, if you remember what I mentioned last week, when you want to answer a question such as what are the determinants, what are the factors, what is their impact of something on something else, we call for quantitative methods. How questions, like how is it working, how come, or to what extent questions, then call for a qualitative method. But then what is the ambition? Is their ambition too big? And is your methodological apparatus or construct too strong, too big for your question? So do you want to do something too big, too much for a simple question, or is it well aligned? So the right caliber of methodological response to your question. So here I'm now showing you the second prompt. Here, role, you are a research feasibility examiner. Task, assess whether my chosen method is proportionate to my research ambition. So here, research question, chosen method, output format, type of question, exploratory, explanatory, causal, interpretive? Does this method match the type, yes or no? Is the design oversized or undersized? Oversized, balanced, insufficient? One structural adjustment suggestion. I'd rather not go for structural adjustment suggestion, but why not? And let's try again here with Gemini. Let's take the same here. So the same as at the beginning. Input, so research question is this. Chosen methods will be interviews plus ethnography. Let's say 25 interviews plus 9 months ethnography, and we'll see what it says. As a research feasibility examiner, I have assessed the scale of your methodology against the scope of your inquiry. Here's your audit. Type of question, interpretive. Does this method match the type? Yes. Is the design oversized or undersized? Oversized. One structural adjustment suggestion: reduce the number of interviews to 10 or 12 highly targeted key informants, as the 9 months ethnography will already provide the primary data and thick description needed to answer the question, likely leading to data saturation long before the 25th interview. Interesting. I would not have necessarily expecting this. Examiner's analysis: you have designed the gold standard study for depth, but the sheer volume of data might become an obstacle rather than an asset. The burden of data, 25 interviews plus 270 days of field notes, will generate thousands of pages of text. Something you might not have thought about before. For a single researcher, the coding process alone could take up to a year. It may be okay for a PhD, but for a master's thesis, it may be too much. Then there is methodological redundancy. In an ethnography, the interviews usually serve to clarify what you have observed. If you're embedded for 9 months, you will naturally reach theoretical saturation, the point where no new data provides any extra insights. And this might happen sooner than you expect. Interesting, right? Then let's try with, it's like the same, we'll take the same prompt, we'll change a couple of things. Here, if I say, something I often see with students are 6 interviews with experts. And you'll see, as a research feasibility examiner, I have evaluated the scale. Type of research question, interpretive. Does this method match this type? Yes. Is the design oversized or undersized? It's insufficient. Adjustment suggestion, increase the sample to 12 or 15 participants and include shadowing or document analysis of actual budget files to move beyond what experts say they do and see what they actually do. Examiner's analysis, while your method, interviews, aligns with the interpretive nature of how people practice, your current scale creates a validity gap. The say-do problem. Experts, with brackets, often describe the ideal or theoretical way budgeting should work, more or less what you would see in a textbook. To answer how it actually is practiced, you need to capture, again, the messy reality of the process, which usually comes through extra data, extra voices. Saturation risk. With only 6 interviews, you are bound not to reach theoretical saturation, the point where stopping hearing new perspectives will not add any extra insights, so that your findings may be dismissed as they might just be peripheral to the problem rather than a robust conclusion. So here, features, so current design, reliability, low, high risk of outlier bias, depth, surface level best practices, feasibility, very high, can finish in weeks. What would be recommended instead? 12 plus. Reliability, high, as it identifies recurring themes across roles. Depth, deep dive into actual behavioral nuances. Feasibility, moderate, requires more networking, more time. But that's why the dissertation is taking a year. It is a long time journey, long time process. So here, proportionality, we see not just whether a method is aligned, but how it helps, how it is adequate to the question and is enough or too much given your question. So I continue. 𝗬𝗏𝘀𝗙𝗢, good evening. Good evening. It's okay, no worries. Nice to see you tonight. Nice to see you. Sorry, I just see that you joined. So I did not want to be rude by not greeting you, but nice to see you tonight. So the third dimension, I think it's important to address tonight is the comfort bias. So if you remember, last week I discussed choices based on your own preference. I feel more comfortable with, I do not feel comfortable with numbers and figures, so I will do quals. Or conversely, I'm not very comfortable with talking to people with English, so conducting interviews will be hard, or I do not really have many connections, so I'm not sure I would easily meet with people, or I would easily find people who can help and answer my questions. So here it is intellectually disputable. You're not great intellectual honesty, choosing a method for the bad reasons. And the bad reason here being that you feel more comfy with this one than with a different one. So here we'll see with this third prompt why it is a problem, and whether you are sorry, I'm just sharing my screen with you within a sec. Here, the comfort bias check. So I'm sharing my screen with you again, and here going back to Gemini, here is the new prompt. Your role, I didn't read it for you, so I'm reading it before I apply it. Your role, you are a bias detector in academic decision making. Task, evaluate whether my choice of method is epistemically justified or comfort driven. Input, why I feel comfortable with this method. Input, output format, primary driver detected, comfort, access, epistemic necessity, risk of methodological bias, low, medium, high. One question I must honestly answer before proceeding. So here, it is important that you answer this question honestly, not because you think it's desirable, socially desirable. If you do answer because it is socially desirable, I think it's not very helpful. So here, here, let's say I'm choosing interviews because I'm good at talking and engaging. Of course, here I'm taking a caricature. But let's see what it says. Here, as a bias detector in academic decision making, I have analyzed your methodological rationale. Here is your evaluation. 1. Primary driver detected, comfort, risk of methodological bias high. One question I must honestly answer before proceeding. Am I choosing interviews because they are the most rigorous way to uncover the truth, or because they allow me to avoid the technical or statistical challenges of alternative methods? Detectors analysis, selecting a method based on personal charisma rather than the nature of the data is a classic form of researcher bias. One of the classical mistakes I mentioned last week. While soft skills are an asset during data collection, they do not inherently justify the choice of instrument. The hammer and nail syndrome. If your only tool is a silver tongue, every research problem starts to look like a conversation. This can lead you to ignore structural, economic, systemic factors that a talk-based, talk-driven method might miss. The social desirability trap, which I mentioned early on, because you're good at talking, you might inadvertently lead your participants to give you the answers they think you want to hear, and this rather than the raw, inconvenient truth of their practice. To move from comfort-driven to epistemically justified, you need to demonstrate that the data requires your voice, not just that your voice is ready to be heard. Then let's try the same prompt, but let's change here. I will choose I'm intending to conduct a survey as I want to replicate 𝗬𝗲𝘀𝘁 research. It was 1981, 45 years on. And we'll see. As a bias detector in academic decision making, I've scrutinized your rationale. Primary driver detected epistemic necessity. Risk of methodological bias, medium. I'd like to see why. One question I must honestly answer before proceeding. Am I using a survey because it is the only way to scientifically validate a longitudinal change, or am I clinging to a 45-year-old instrument because it provides a pre-existing template that avoids the difficulty of deciding a modern context-specific tool? Here, their idea was to see with the same tool whether and this is what I will write next, whether 𝗬𝗲𝘀𝘀's research and conclusions are still valid today. So detectors analysis. Replication studies are the backbone of credible science, and your driver is epistemically sound. To measure change over 45 years, you must use the same yardstick, the survey used in the original study. However, this path carries unique legacy risk. Their instrument obsolescence trap. 𝗬𝗲𝘀's original surveys were designed in a specific corporate and technological era. Interesting. While using them ensures comparability, it may sacrifice contemporary validity. You risk measuring cultural dimensions that have shifted in meaning or ignoring new dimensions that didn't exist in 1980. The confirmation bias of scale. By using a predetermined scale, you are looking for the same buckets Hofstede have found. This might blind you to new ways of management. Management accountants practice budgeting that fall outside his original cultural framework. To ensure this is truly epistemically justified, you must balance the need for consistency with a critical assessment of whether the original question still makes sense in a digital, globalized accounting environment. Very interesting. Very interesting. So here, even if you want to compare the same, even if you want to challenge a theory, using the same tool may be perceived as not quite appropriate. It might here be perceived as risky not really biased per se, not cognitively biased, but it's like ontologically biased, so biased in its own essence and in the fact that we ignore changes in their environment. But let's see here again with here, let's say that I'm intending to do ethnomethodology as I am studying transgender management, like Garfinkel did in the 1950s, considering contemporary perceptions of being transgender. And we'll see what it says. So, primary driver detected, epistemic necessity. No worries. Risk of methodological bias, still medium. One question I must honestly answer before proceeding. Am I adopting Garfinkel's Agnes case study as a procedural template because it fits the phenomenon? Or am I potentially over-pathologizing passing and management in a way that ignores 70 years of evolution in gender theory and sociology? A good question. Indeed. Harold Garfinkel in 1967 published a book, Ethnomethodology, which was grounded in his clinical practice. So he was a researcher in nursing studies, and in the 50s he had followed a transgender, one of the first transgender people, Agnes, for years, and had taken her case as a way of approaching clinical studies. And this was at a time where doctors were ideology driven, very often ideology driven more than science and patient driven. And Garfinkel wanted to understand how someone decides to try to transition from one gender to the other first, and second wanted to understand the whole phenomenon on the longitudinal basis without prejudice of whatsoever. And this is why I said, I'd like to do something similar, so use a similar method, as it seems to have been very pertinent. And here, detectors analysis, your choice is epistemically justified because ethnomethodology is uniquely suited to uncovering the seen but unnoticed background work that is required to maintain social identity. Since your question focuses on the actual practice of management Analyzing the micro interactions of a daily life is a direct hit. However, there is a specific historical bias risk. So here, historical bias risk, important. The anachronism trap. Harold Garfinkel's study in the 50s, study of Agnes, heavily focused on the achievement of gender through secrecy and passing. In a contemporary context, transgender management may look entirely different. For instance, navigating open transitions, institutional advocacy, or non-binary visibility, so things that did not exist at the time. So we might have unexpected biases, so we might not realize that there are things we didn't consider. Could we say that this prompt is helpful because a researcher can do either keep original method and note bias or areas of potential improvement, or future research, or improve methods with AI guidance? It could be both. It could be both. I would say that this prompt is supposedly usable when you get started, when you start having an intuition of the method you're considering employing, and then it can help you detect the suitability of this intended method. But of course, you're right. You can use it in the aftermath, ex post facto, to assess your own work. But I think it's always better to prevent than heal. So if you can anticipate potential biases and then decide knowingly, it is better than identifying that there were biases afterwards. So this is my my take on this, to answer your question. But it's a very good question. I like this question. So this was the comfort bias check. I could have run the same prompt with other situations, but then let's see the question method compatibility grid. Something important, which is here lexical compatibility, because words hide the methods or reveal the methods. Very often your question already contains the methods, as some questions already contain their own answer. So here, if you remember, questions such as what is the impact of something on something calls for quantitative methods. What is the influence of something on something else, or how questions? Qualitative. What are the determinants of, or the factors of, causality, so expected cause-effect relationships. So here, one single word can make a method inconsistent or inappropriate, inadequate to the situation. So I show you the prompt, and then we will run it and see what comes out of it. So the prompt here, question method compatibility grid. Raoul, you are a methodological alignment examiner. Task: check compatibility between question wording and method type. Input: research question. Chosen method: it will come. Output format: identify keywords implying measurement, interpretation, causality, exploration. Does the method allow that? Yes or no. Compatibility status: coherent, fragile, incoherent. And then let's see here. And here still with Gemini. here. Research question. Let's continue with the thing with which I started. To what extent are management accountants ready to relinquish budgeting and go beyond budgeting? Chosen methods. To what extent? Chosen methods, let's say linear regressions, plus log regressions, and it should show that there are problems. So, as your methodological alignment examiner, have evaluated the linguistic triggers in your research question against the statistical capabilities of your chosen models. Here is the audit. Identify keywords implying measurement. To what extent? Interpretation. Ready to implies psychological behavioral state. Causality. Relinquish. Go beyond. Implies a transition or effect. Exploration. Not applicable. Does the method allow that? Yes, specifically for the to what extent and predictive elements. Compatibility status. Coherent with a caveat on variable operationalization. Here, honestly, so let's say what the examiner says. Your question asks, to what extent, which is the classic precursor for quantitative modeling. By using linear logistic regressions, you are correctly positioning your research to measure the strength of relationships between independent variables and the dependent variable, readiness to adopt beyond budgeting. Linear regression, excellent for determining their extent of readiness on a continuous scale. Logistic regression, perfect for binary outcomes, predicting whether an accountant will either stay with traditional budgeting or relinquish it, 0 or 1. The fragility warning. The interpretation of readiness is your biggest hurdle. Readiness is a latent construct, an internal state. To make your regressions valid, you cannot simply ask, are you ready? You must use a validated scale to convert that psychological state into numerical data. Interesting. Interesting. So here the words were extent, and readiness. That's very interesting. Let's see with a slight change in the words. To what extent, how are management accountant, or how ready are management accountant, how are management accountant ready? Let's see. With the same methods. Keyword implying measurement, not applicable. The to what extent question from a previous version is missing. Interpretation, how, implies a process or qualitative state. Causality, relinquish, go beyond, implies a shift or transition. Exploration, how, often signals a need to describe a phenomenon. Does the method allow that? No. Regression, allow how much, not how. Compatibility status, incoherent. Interesting. Examiner's analysis. By changing your question from to what extent to how, you have inadvertently moved from a quantitative inquiry into a qualitative one. The how trap. In research linguistics, how usually asks for a description of a mechanism or a narrative of experience. Linear and logistic regressions are designed to measure variance and probability, not to describe a process. They can tell you if an accountant is ready, but they cannot explain the internal how of that readiness. The variable problem. Regressions require discrete variables. How implies a complex perhaps non-linear journey of organizational change that simple coefficients struggle to capture. Research elements, so question start, to what extent, blah, etc. To fix this, you must either change your question back to a measurement focus, to what extent, or change your method to something like thematic analysis or case study to explore the how. Interesting. Then let's try with something else, which will be here. To what extent are management accountants blah blah blah. Let's try with a 9-month, let's say 9-month ethnography, participant ethnography, and we'll see what comes from there. Here it's the same research question, just the intended method is, so to what extent are management accountants ready to relinquish budgets and go beyond budgeting? The chosen method, a 9-month participant observation ethnography, and we want to see then what comes out from this. Identify keywords implying measurement. What extent implies a scale, degree, or quantifiable volume. Okay. Interpretation. Ready to implies a psychological state, etc. Okay. Exploration. Does the method allow that? No. While ethnography excels at interpretation, it cannot cite statistically or precisely answer to what extent in a way that allows for a generalizable measurement. Compatibility status, fragile. Here, examiners analysis, you are facing a linguistic methodological mismatch. To what extent is the language of variables and surveys? Ethnography is the language of immersion and meaning. The scale problem. Ethnography provides thick descriptions of a single site or a small group or population. It can tell deeply about the readiness of 5 accountants in one firm, in one team, but it cannot tell you the extent of this readiness across the profession, perhaps not even within the organization. Quantifying the unquantifiable. If you spend 9 months in the field and conclude they are 70% ready, your readers will ask you how you arrived at this number without a standardized metric. The path of coherence. To make this design robust, you have 2 choices. You're confronted with a dilemma. Either you change the question from to what extent to how do management accountants navigate the tensions of relinquishing traditional budgeting. This makes it coherent with ethnography. Or you change the method, use a surveyor with a like scale to actually measure this extent. Let's try last thing. Let's try with this suggestion, right? So I will take exactly the same prompt and I will take this suggestion to see how it changed the question. So I'm changing the question here. The chosen method is unchanged, and we'll see what it says. And it should be good. Measurement not applicable. Interpretation how implies process. Navigate implies action strategy. Tension implies a psychological state or a social state. Causality, relinquishing, the act of letting go as a result of the navigation. Yeah. Exploration, how, seeks to describe a mechanism or experience. Does the method allow that? No. Regressions, what? Oops, sorry, I did not want regressions. Here is the, sorry. I do not know how come. Oh, I didn't copy the right one. 9 month ethnography. Participant observation. Sorry about that. Didn't copy the right one. Interpretation. Does the method allow that? Yes. Participant observation is the gold standard for witnessing navigation and tension in real time. Compatibility status coherent. Great. Examiner's analysis. This is a high alignment research design. You have matched a process-oriented question with a longitudinal immersive method. The navigation match. Navigation isn't a single event. It's a series of micro decisions, coffee room compliance, and subtle resistances. A 9-month window allows you to see the full budgeting cycle and the politics of relinquishing that a survey or one-off interview would miss. Tension as data. In ethnography, tension isn't just a variable, it is something you feel and observe through body language, silences in meetings, and the gap between official policy and actual actions. Methodological strength. By choosing this method, you move from declarative data, what accountants say they do, to procedural data, what they actually do. This is particularly vital for beyond budgeting research, where the official corporate narrative often contradicts the ingrained habits of management accountants. Interesting here. I'm not surprised, given what we had just before, I'm not surprised by that result. Here, tonight I wanted, check your message. If we run this prompt on a selection of 100 paper abstracts from a specific field, perhaps it could provide a summary assessment of how methodologically consistent researchers of this field have been. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thus, we could more efficiently critique those fields. I fully agree. You're absolutely right, 𝗬𝗿. And this is something that could indeed be done. Someone who would like to, do such a meta-analysis with hundreds of papers could easily do it using a tool like 𝗬𝗏, as I showed you. But what you could create an agent which does this, and here is the prompt. So we would, of course, need to adjust it a bit. But what is interesting is that there could be a RAG, a retrieval augmented generation database, vectorial database, in which the AI would collect data, and the data would be the papers. And then it would confront the papers, so in this database, against the prompt. And indeed, you could ask in the prompt some extra ways of presenting and structuring the field, showing perhaps on a, let's say, on a scale or on a diagram or on a quadrant, where papers fit in terms of compatibility, proportionality, etc. Absolutely. You could absolutely do that. It could serve as a great basis for a meta-analysis, and you could have indeed a great overview of a field, something much stronger than what I have done, what I did 10, 15 years ago with my Excel spreadsheets. So my Excel spreadsheets were run manually, and here you could indeed do this and go much farther than what you're suggesting here. When you say 100 papers, running those 100 papers, if you do it manually with each of them, it might be a burden. It might take so much time. Whilst running an agent, building an agent that would do that, could generate much more exploitable results, something much more useful and interesting for yourself and for research. So yeah, that's a very good point. I like it. I like this idea, and this gives me ideas of what we could do, what could be done, and I might try. Something like this someday. I might. Now that's very good. Thank you very much for this. For this point, even if it was not a suggestion that I could or should build such an agent, it is something I might want to explore. So, and just to conclude for tonight, I'm thankful to you because it's a very, very interesting point you're making. You could even try with the papers in your own thesis, by the way, and have perhaps something extra for discussion at some point on your viva, unless you do not want to bring extra material, which is fully understandable. So if your methods, so if we run those 4 prompts at the beginning, so when you are choosing your methods, and if your method survives those 4 tests, you might proceed further. If it fails one of them, just one of them, you need to rethink before you collect your data, because it might mean that either you have put the method first, not the question, so the alignment may not be there. Your methods might not be proportionate to the question, so either oversized or undersized, if not incoherent, but let's bet it's not incoherent. Or make sure there are no strong biases, so comfort biases, and also make sure that there is a real alignment with the literature, that it's not coming from coming out of the blue. So thank you very much for making it tonight for Peter. I bet you are incredible. You arrived in one piece. I bet you are excited about Thursday. Excited about Thursday, and I can really understand. I will be there online, and I apologize again for not being able to make it in person this week. So I had blocked 3 days last week for your own viva, and this week I had already planned a number of things. So sorry about this, but I'll be there online. So I wish you a lovely evening, and I'm happy to see you on Wednesday for a rehearsal. And so see you soon. Cheers.